Okay, how to spoke a Magic Pi rim onto a Magic Pi motor. So I've got the motor hanging on a stand here, which is basically just the back end of a bike I cut off a few years ago. Basically you can do this right on your own bicycle, just turn it right upside down and go from there. Now the idea of this is the holes, as you can see on the side here, there's two here and then two here, right? And then on the opposite side there's two more, okay? And they're all in groups of 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a spoke in this hole and attach it to the wheel. And then I'm going to go up here and put one in this hole and then attach it to the 4th hole down on the rim. And then go to this hole here and go to the 4th hole on the rim and so on all the way around until I get that one hole filled all the way around on this side of the rim to every 4th hole on the rim itself. Another thing when I get started here is when I put the spoke through this hole, I'm coming from the outside of the wheel in. And then I'm going to wrap it up to attach to the wheel. You can see there's an elbow there, then it goes up to the wheel. And then when I do the next one, it'll come from the outside and through into the middle and then up to the wheel. Okay, so now I have the spoke going through the rim, coming right out to the top. And I just put a spoke nut on it and I give it a couple of turns, maybe 3 times. You don't want to do anything tight here because it'll make it much more difficult later. You want to leave everything quite loose. So I'm going to do the next one now. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to do every 4th hole. So here's one in the 1st hole there. And then I have 1, 2, 3 holes in between, and then I'm in the 4th one. So the same thing applies to the rim. I have a spoke here, and then I have 1, 2, 3 holes in between, and I'm into the 4th hole. And I'm just going to continue this all the way around the wheel. Okay, and for clarity again, I have a spoke in that hole coming out here, and then I have 1, 2, 3 holes in between, and then the next spoke, which is in the 4th hole. So if I go down here, I've got 1, 2, 3 holes, and then the spoke is in the 4th hole. So again, up here I've got the spoke, and then I've got 1, 2, 3 blank holes, and the spoke is in the 4th one. And this is basically as simple as can be. The reason you're going in every 4th hole is there's 3 holes in between each spoke. 1, 2, 3, and they're going to go into the 3 holes in between here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 spokes in, and I'm moving up to the 5th spoke here, and now it no longer will stick out the rim out the top where I can just screw the thread or thread the spoke nut on easily. And so what I do now is I take another spoke and I put it onto the back of the spoke nut like this, and then I stick the spoke through the hole. Which hole do I want here? I want the 4th one. So let's see, I'm in this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I go to the 4th hole down, and you can see where that's the actual weld in the rim there for joining it together. And down here you can see the spoke nut is now sticking out. And I'll be able to spin it onto the spoke. Unfortunately, I only have 2 hands, so I can't video that while I do it, but that's the idea. So now I put the spoke nut onto the spoke, and I'll hold it in place with my hand and unscrew the extra spoke that I'm using to help. Okay, so now I have 9 spokes in. It's a 30 spoke wheel, and I have one in every 4th hole, so that's 9 spokes. So now it's time to start the next batch. So the next 9 I'm going to do, if you look at where the hole alignment is here, there's one that's almost directly across from it. So that's the one I'm going to do next. And I'm going to come in from the outside on there and come through. And the idea of this is these spokes are actually supposed to cross. So if I can get this correct here. Okay, so there'll be a slight cross at the bottom, and it's going to go into the hole that's right next to the one I just did. So this spoke is there, and this spoke is just going to go into that next hole there. So you have a slight cross. Okay, you can see the spoke is in now, and it's got a very slight cross to it. And while you can still see my helper spoke sticking out the top to help get the spoke nut on. Actually, some people call them nipples, so I call them spoke nuts. You know, it's just terminology, but you get it. So now I'm going to go do the next one, and that'll be 4 holes from the one I just put in. or it'll also be the opposite side of this one, and it's going to crisscross this spoke going in. Okay, so now you can see I have 18 spokes in the wheel now. So we got half the spokes in, and they're all in the crisscross pattern all the way around, and they are in the two holes that are right almost opposite each other on the wheel. And now it's just a matter of the two spoke holes in between. There's one on this side here and one on that side here. They miraculously go to the two spoke holes up in the rim up here. Oh, there's the one for the valve. Let's get away from that so it looks a little easier to understand. But you've got spoke hole and a spoke hole, and then up here you've got two holes between the spokes. See, there's one there and one there. So now all we're going to do now is we're going to put a spoke in from the outside here, right? And then we're going to run it through, and then this one is going to go into the hole that's next available up here, right? And then the spoke that comes through from the other side will go into the next hole here. So these two spokes do not crisscross. Only the first 18 do. The next 18 are just going to fill in the two holes above all the way around. Okay, so now you can see there's the crisscross spokes here, and then the two spokes in between just go straight up into the rim. So the spokes are actually all in sets of 4, and I'll display that in a minute. But the crisscross is here, and the two spokes in between just go straight up to the rim. And of course you can see my helper spoke up there still. Okay, and now my wonderful companion Jasmine has joined me out here. What a great dog she is. Anyway, you can see I've put a few more spokes in. I usually put all these in pairs. You know, like the gap in between here, I'll put these two in at once. But anyway, I just wanted to show you what I meant by they're all in sets of 4. So you can see here you've got 4 spokes relatively close together to each other, and they go to 4 holes together up above, right? And then the next group down, well, of course I've only got 3 in that one and 3 in this one, so I'll show that example again in a moment. Okay, so now I've got 18 spokes in the rim with the crisscross pattern, and then I added the other 18 spokes in between. So now there's 36 spokes in the rim, and it took me about 15 minutes to do this. It's really quite simple. I remember when I used to get people at bike shops to do this for me, I used to think they were a genius on figuring out how to spoke or wheel. It's so simple, it's unbelievable. So now you can see the wheel is still quite flexible because I kept all the spokes nice and loose, so I didn't have to fight with anything at all when I'm putting it together. And now the next step is, if you look right at the spoke here, you can see how many threads are sticking out. Now, I don't expect you'll see that very well, but there's about 4 threads sticking out there. This one may be about 6. That one may be about 6 or maybe even 8, and so on all the way around. And so what I'm going to do now, that one's probably even 10 threads showing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tighten all the spoke nuts until there's only about 2 threads showing on each one all the way around the wheel. And that should tighten it up a bit. It won't be so flexible, and that's a good start on getting it trued. So that's the next step. One thing I should mention, people bring their bike wheels to a bike shop, and the bike shop says that they don't have a spoke wrench that fits that spoke nut. And that kind of blows me away because they're supposed to be a bike shop and supposed to have things that can do this. I go to a local department store in Canada here called Canadian Tire, and I buy these for $3.75. It's multi-sizes, it fits any regular bike, the e-bikes, whatever. And you're going to use number 14 on here for our spokes. And all you do when you put it on, it's very simple. You put it on and you slide it up so that it goes over the nut. And then you turn the nut. Okay, so now I'm going to tighten it up, each one of them, like I was saying, until there's 2 threads showing on each nut. Oh, and I should also mention that I'm sitting in a very squeaky chair, so sorry about that. Okay, so now you can see I've got about 2 threads on each one showing, and you want to try and be as accurate as possible when you do this, because you want to start off with the wheel really quite well centered. And the reason that you want every one of them to be exactly the same before you get started is you're going to try and get some accuracy going here. And you want to make sure that if they're all at exactly 2 apart, or I should say 2 threads deep, when you turn the wheel, you'll see no hop. Like the wheel will not be moving in this direction back and forth this way. Sorry about the lighting here, but you can see that when I spin the wheel, it's the same height all the way around. There's no hop to the wheel. It's exactly perfect. And this is where a lot of people make a mistake, is they don't get those two threads showing all the way around before they get started. So now this wheel has zero hop to it. And the next thing you want to look at is down here. You want to make sure it's centered in the dropout, or in the dropouts. The dropouts are back here. But anyway, you want to look at the dropouts, and you want to make sure that you have the axle nice snugly fit down inside the dropout on both sides, and that you have the nuts tightened up reasonably tight, so that there's no chance of this wandering around on you at all, because you're really going to want to try and get some accuracy going here. And then up here, when you look at it and you spin the wheel, you can see that it's, you know, relatively straight, but it does have some wandering to it, which is okay, because we're going to fix that. But right now it's spinning okay, and there's no hop to it. So I've got each thread about 2 threads sticking out from the spoke nut all the way around, and I'm just going to go all the way around and check that again, just to make sure that they're all really close to being exactly the same. And another thing you want to do when you're working with the wheel is everybody always says that whenever you go around the wheel, you should always find the place where the valve hole is, and always start from there as a marker. And if you were to tighten each nut all the way around a quarter turn, you would end up right here again, and then all the nuts would be tightened the same amount. So you want to start from a certain location and stop from a certain location. And I find if I don't put some sort of a mark here, I always miss that. So what I normally do is I take a piece of tape and I wrap it around here, and I'm going to put that on now and show it to you. Okay, so all I did was I wrapped some black electrical tape around it right where the valve hole is. You could actually put it anywhere you want on the rim. It's just for your starting and stop point. But this is sticking out far enough so that I'll see it when I'm going around, and I won't go past it when I'm tightening the spokes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around each spoke nut all the way around and tighten them a quarter turn. And also, just for clarity, a quarter a turn is where the spoke wrench is flat like this, and you turn it 1/4 of a turn in. And I'm going to work my way all the way around. And the first one I started at was the one right above the tape here, and I'm going to end up with the one right below the tape when I stop. And you can see I've taken quite a bit of the looseness out of the wheel already, tightening each one up with 2 threads left. But the idea is to try and get your spokes tighter now. Not so much worry about the alignment side to side, but to get the spokes nice and tight, not real tight, but to the point that you're tightening it and you're not creating a hop in the wheel as you go. So 1/4 turn all the way around and end up at the tape here again. Okay, so now I've gone completely around the wheel, and I've tightened each one up a quarter turn all the way around. And if you're following me with this, you will notice that some of them are a lot tighter already than others. And the ones that are tighter, you still want to do a quarter turn on. And the ones that are looser, you still want to do a quarter turn, but maybe a little more. And each time you go around the wheel and you're tightening a quarter turn, the ones that are looser, give them a little extra spin, not a lot, you know, just enough to get them caught up to where the point where the spoke wrench itself isn't just spinning freely all the way around. There is some resistance, but you still want to try and keep the quarter turn all the way around as much as possible, and the spokes that are really loose, give them a little extra. So I'm going to go around and do another quarter turn again. Okay, so unfortunately I started filming this right at dusk, but I have the light on the phone here now, so it seems to be okay. So what I've done is I've strung a zip tie around the bike forks itself here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the distance between the wheel itself and the zip tie and see if it's close all the way around. Make sure there's no hop. Now you will notice the wheel is going to wander from side to side here, but there's no point. Oh, there's my tape, of course. There's no point where the wheel seems to be hopping. It seems to be the same exact distance from the zip tie all the way around. Maybe I can get a better view on the side here. Okay, so this is about as unscientific as it gets, but you know, without a truing stand and everything, this works pretty good. You can see there's no hop to the wheel. Okay, and I've got all the spokes reasonably tight. I went around twice with a quarter turn, and now I'm going to go around and do a quarter turn again. But this time it's all about spoke tension. So what I'm going to do is each time I tighten one, I'm going to have a certain feeling as to how tight it is. And if the next one feels a little looser, I'm going to turn it a little more. And if the next one feels a little tighter than the next one, I'm going to turn it a little less. So I'm going to go like some of them maybe an 1/8 of a turn, some of them maybe 1/4 of a turn, and some of them maybe even up to half a turn, just to try and get that same tension all the way around. And then I'm going to go back to the zip tie there and check for a hop. Make sure I don't have any hop going on. The idea is to do this a little bit at a time so you don't throw the wheel out. Okay, so now I've gone around the wheel 3 times. And each of the 3 times I turned it a quarter of a turn. That was after I originally set all the spokes at about 2 threads sticking out. Maybe 3 threads. But they were all pretty even. And now I've gone around the wheel 3 times, tightening it a quarter turn each time. And the last time I went around, well, actually each time I went around, the ones that were very stiff, I turned very little. And the ones that were loose, I turned a little more. So on the 3rd time around, some of them I may have only turned maybe 1/8 of an inch. And some I didn't turn at all, maybe 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of a turn. Some of them I probably only turned 1/16 of a turn. And others I may have turned up to 3/4 of a turn. But the idea is to try and get all the spokes at relatively the same tension. And if you start plucking them, they make a sound, right? You want them all to sound relatively the same. It's not an exact science. They'll never sound exactly the same, but you can definitely go around plucking them with your finger and tell if any are real loose. So the wheel is definitely starting to tighten up now. And I'm going to go back over here and look for a hop. Now, I still don't see any hop. Everything looks really good all the way around. I'm just having a little trouble holding my phone straight more than anything, but you can see there's no hop in the wheel all the way around. Everything looks good. Now when I look from the side, or right at the very top, I can see that the wheel is wandering from side to side a bit. I'm going to put something there now to be able to judge that. Maybe another zip tie or a piece of tape. I'll see what I come up with. Okay, so I've gone around the wheel, another quarter turn all the way around. And what I was talking about with the spokes is you can tell that they're all getting relatively tight. They're different tones, but they're tight. That one seems a little too tight. I might pull that one out a little, loosen that one off a bit. How many threads is that one in? Oh, see that one there's no threads on. Somehow I got that one too tight. You can see threads on the ones beside it. That one is a little too tight. So I'm going to loosen that one. That's right by the letter N here. I'll find it again, but they all have that tension. You can hear it. So that one that is a little too tight. Oh, this one. That one sounds loose. So I'll tighten that one up a little bit. Now again, this is very unscientific, but a very simple way of telling what spokes are too tight and which ones are too loose. That one definitely needs to be tightened. Okay, so by plucking the spokes, I've gone around and they don't all sound the same, but you can tell there's a reasonable amount of tension in each one. And now when I look at the end here, I can see, and of course this is unscientific again, but when I put my spoke key up against the rim here, you can see the gap on that side, and you can see the gap on this side is much smaller. So the wheel is too far over this way. Just looking here, you can see it's too far over that way. So the idea here is I want to pull the rim this way, which is called dishing the wheel. And on most bikes, you dish the wheel towards where the freewheel would go. But on our bikes, of course, we have the fan housing and the disc brake and everything in that. So, it does need to be dished the other way, at least on this one anyway. So I'm going to get some sort of tool and measure the distance on each side, and I got to pull it this way. And the way to do that is when you look at the spokes, all the ones that come to this side of the motor, I'm going to loosen all of them a quarter turn, and then I'm going to go to the other side of the motor and I'm going to tighten all those spokes a quarter turn, and that will pull the rim over. So I'm going to go around and do that and then come back and compare. But for now, we'll just look at this and you can see how much it's out. Okay, so I went around and I loosened all the spokes on this side of the wheel here a quarter turn, which is every second spoke all the way around the rim. And then I went on the other side of the motor and all the spokes come from that side. I tightened a quarter turn. So now let's look at the end here, and you can see when I put the spoke wrench there, look at how much I've moved the wheel over. It's quite substantial. So now when I put it on both sides, it looks pretty close to the same. So I can see the black part of the frame is almost half of the size of the hole, and on this side almost half the size of the hole. So right there I just shifted the wheel over and now it's centered in the frame. Okay, so now I'm going to very slowly turn the wheel and I'm going to see if I've created any hop in the wheel. Problem is I can't hold the phone still while I spin the wheel. But it does appear that there is no hop. The rim is completely the same all the way around. If only I could hold the phone straighter, you would see that, but there is no hop in the wheel. So I have it with no hop, and I have it centered in the dropout here, centered in the frame. So now when I spin it, we're going to look for wander. So I'm going to set something up on there, we'll be able to gauge that. Okay, so now I've just taped a piece of paper across the frame here, and it's resting on that zip tie I had underneath. And I'm just going to draw some lines on there where the wheel is, but I'm just going to spin it now, and you can see the wheel is wandering from side to side. There is no hop, but the wheel is wandering. That black piece of tape I have on there is hitting, so I'm actually going to put that so it doesn't hit. But I'm going to put some lines on the paper, and we'll be able to tell if where the wheel is wandering. So what I've done is I've marked 2 lines on there with a pen. You know, it doesn't have to be that accurate to where the wheel is, but this is just going to help me watch to see if the wheel is wandering. And you can see, okay, here they're moving to the right of the lines a bit. I got to get rid of that piece of tape temporarily. And then as I continue to spin the wheel, they're back to the left. So there is some wander in the wheel. I'm going to get rid of that piece of tape and show you what to do next. Okay, so hopefully I have the phone in a reasonable spot here. I'm just going to focus on this one side here because the other side is angled there. You can see this part's pretty much straight up and down. Okay, now I can see that this part of the wheel, the line is inside the rim. And then as I spin it, okay, now the line is on the outside of the rim. So this part of the rim, you can see how much it wanders there. So what I want to do is I want to find the spot that's exactly in the center of where that is. So right here it's outside the rim, and I spin it and it's inside the rim to the point that it's outside again. So that would be from here to here. So now I'm backing up now. The part of the rim that's off to that side is that whole side all the way around. Now you would think that you would just tighten and loosen a whole bunch of the spokes to move it over that way, but that's not really how it's done. What you want to do is find the halfway point. So the halfway point between where the wheel is there and my finger is approximately here. Okay, so this part of the wheel right here is too far that way. So what I want to do is I want to pull it this way. So what I'm going to do is 2 of the spokes that are on that side of the wheel, which would be these 2 right here, I'm going to loosen those 2 a 1/4 turn, and the spoke in the middle, I'm going to tighten it a 1/2 turn. So I'm going to pull the wheel towards me. So loosen these 2 a 1/4 and tighten that one a 1/2. Okay, so that's done. What I did was I loosened these 2 a 1/4 turn and I tightened this one a 1/2 turn. Now we're going to come back over here again and see if I can get this lined up. And when I bring that part of the wheel back to there, you can see that part of the wheel is now in the spot you want. So now, there it's correct. And there it's correct. So I got to find the halfway point between that. Okay, so that's there. So now the halfway point between where my hand is and there is right around here. Okay, so now I'm looking at it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen these 2, because I'm working with the 4 spokes together here. So I'm going to loosen these 2 and tighten that one. And that's going to bring it this way. Okay, so now as I said, I loosened these 2 a 1/4 turn, which are on the other side of the wheel, and I tightened this one a 1/2 turn. And I brought the wheel closer to me. So now, if we look at that part by the line here, I'll keep my hand on it. right there. You can see it's now at the line. Okay, so I'm going to spin the wheel, look for another bad spot. The stand is wandering all around here, so it makes it kind of hard for you to tell what's going on, but I can see it. Let me just see here. Seems to be quite good. Maybe I'll let the stand fall where it wants. Okay, let's try it some more here. Okay, you can see there's some wander. It's coming towards me. Now it's going away. Oh, there's one part that's away right there. Let's get a little closer and look at that. Okay, so you can see it's on this side of the line. Now it's on that side of the line. Now it's on this side of the line again. So right there is where it starts to wander. And it's off for quite a ways here. And right there is where it's back. So I'm going to grab the spoke here where it's at. Bring it all the way around, see it curves in. Now it's coming back out. Now that surprisingly is about halfway around the wheel. So, don't mind the squeaky chair again. Halfway around the wheel, so I got to grab a spoke up around here somewhere. Somewhere around here. Now I've got to loosen two on the other side, so that would be these two, and tighten this one that's in the middle of them, right here. So I'm going to loosen this one and this one a quarter turn and tighten that one a half. And that will bring it towards me again. This is the one I'm going to tighten. So you'll loosen the two outside ones first. Okay, so I loosened the two that are on the other side of the motor here, this one, and I tighten this one a half. These two are loosened a quarter. Let's see where that's at with the line now. Looks pretty good. It's amazing how just one slight adjustment can correct half the wheel. Okay, now we're looking pretty close to being perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm going to tighten all the spokes again, another quarter turn if possible. Any that are real tight, I'm not going to tighten the full quarter turn. And any that are loose still, I might turn a little more. So far I don't have any wheel hop and very slight wandering, but I still have to tighten the spokes, which will probably throw the wheel off again, and then I'll correct it. Okay, so now I went around the wheel and I tightened every spoke a quarter turn again. The ones that were real tight, I tightened a little less than a quarter turn, and the ones that were loose, I tightened a little more than a quarter turn. It does look like I've still don't have any hop in the wheel, but I have introduced a little new wandering. Let's look at the line on this side at this time. Well, it's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go around the wheel again. I'm going to tighten them all a quarter turn again. Again, the ones that are real tight, I'm going to tighten a little less than a quarter turn. And the ones that are looser, I'm going to tighten a little more. Okay, so now I've been around the wheel, I don't know, maybe half a dozen times, turning it a quarter turn at a time to tighten up all the spokes. I've got them nice and tight. You know, if I pluck them, they all have that nice sound to it. They all sound tight. They're all basically about the same sound. Probably did this very leisurely within about, you know, including making this video, within about 2 hours. Probably an hour of time on the wheel and maybe an hour of shooting the video. And it came along quite easily and quite nice. The wheel, as you can tell here, if I could just hold it still, is perfectly true. There are no hops, there's no wander, and turned out quite well. It's actually very easy to do, and it took really no tools at all, hardly. You know, I have a little piece of black electrical tape, a piece of paper, a pen to draw a couple lines on it, and the spoke tool, which you buy at a local department store. I paid this $3.75 for this at Canadian Tire locally here. And there you go. So that's how you build a wheel, a Magic Pi wheel. This same method works for any of our other motors, the Smart Pi, the 902 motors, the Black Magic. They're all spoke the same way. And you can use this video to build any one of them. So have a great day. It's Gary Sallow, Gold Motor Canada. Enjoy the ride. Thanks for watching.